G'day everyone, Hot Wheels Joe back here again. This time it's not a motorbike, but it's my other hobby, which is obviously Hot Wheels. It's in the name. I have been a collector of Hot Wheels for well over 10 years. I think since I was about 19 I started properly collecting. Obviously got a fair amount over the years. As everyone does, you go through phases of what you like to collect. It usually revolves around movie cars, Batman, JDM, the odd awesome fantasy car, of course. Lots of treasure hunts, and if I'm lucky, super treasure hunts. I usually prefer to find them on the shelves and pegs. I'm not usually too inclined to buy them, as they're usually marked up quite a lot. I get quite a lot of satisfaction in finding them myself. So yeah, that's what's out on display in the garage. I've got quite a bit boxed away as well. I like to rotate them out now and then, put some up in the house as well. What I want to talk about today is customs, because it's the other thing I do quite a bit. You can sort of spend quite a lot of time customizing Hot Wheels in whatever way you want. This video is aimed at people who are wanting to start off doing customs and have been wondering, what do I need to actually custom a Hot Wheels? So I might start by saying you might just want to do a simple wheel swap, which is basically taking the wheels off a Hot Wheels and swapping them out with wheels that might look better, which is still really popular and completely doable for a beginner. I've got a lot of stuff here on my workbench. You probably don't need all of this to do your basic customs. I've just dragged everything out that I tend to use, and I'll explain as I go. So whether you're wanting to do a wheel swap like this, Celica has been drilled and wheel swapped to these wheels, which look a little bit better than the stock, or whether you're wanting to go a bit more all out and do something that's completely custom from scratch. Obviously I've done this one, which is a two-tone GDR with all the details and some decals. Could do with some rubber wheels, but I actually quite like the colour on this, so I'm happy with how it is. So you're going to need a drill is the first thing, because underneath these cars they've got rivets. The vast majority are riveted. It's die-cast metal, so it's nice and soft. Sorry about the focus here, let's try and get that to behave. There you go. So these ones have been drilled out. Now I use a 5.5mm drill bit. Some people might use a different size. I've just found that's what works for me. Some people like to start off with a really small drill bit and work their way up. Some people like to just send it and just do a 5.5. It works well because I find that most of the time it snaps back together, the body. You don't really need to some of them you don't even need to glue back together. So first thing, you need drill, obviously. Second sort of thing you might want to have is a multi-tool sort of thing, like a rotary tool with all the different attachments. So obviously the grinder for trimming and cutting. You've got some sanding wheels here, which are really good for smoothing off the die cast, and even the plastic parts if you're wanting to shave off bits here and there. Even good for getting rid of spoilers and things. You can pick one up at your local hardware store, and it doesn't have to be the premium brand, like you're only doing die cast really, you're not cutting titanium or anything like that. Buffing wheel can be handy to have for polishing the metal, and just be careful if you painted it, because it's probably going to take some paint off. The other thing that I haven't actually added, but I will now, is a couple of screwdrivers. Again, available from your local department store. You can get a set of 6 or 8 different sized screwdrivers, but make sure they're quite small, and you're wanting flathead ones if you can. you'll see why once you go to drill a car and you're trying to separate the body from the chassis. So a flathead works perfectly for that. The other little hand tools that you'll need once you've drilled your vehicle and once you've prized that body off is you're going to need a couple of little wire cutters. So you can get a pair that's smaller than this even, that's fine, just so long as it's got that sort of sharp nosed cutter for obviously cutting metal and cutting plastic. So this I primarily use for getting taking the wheels off, so they're held in by a sort of plastic harness clip, and all you do is you just clip off one end of the harness and the wheel generally will fall out. That's the other type of clipper I've got for, again, trimming plastic and sometimes trimming off where the wheels are held on as well. I will do another video of drilling a car and taking the wheels off, but this video I am just going to leave for equipment. On the table here, after you've separated your body, you're going to want some paint stripper if you're going to paint your car. This is the gel or sort of the paintable paint stripper, which I'd recommend. I would probably steer away from the spray on stuff. It just is not good. I've tried it multiple times in the past and it just does not work. And for the price of this stuff, it's not that cheap, so, but it does last a long time and it works. An old toothbrush. This one's made of wood because the plastic got degraded from the paint stripper, so make sure if you can, or a small wire brush as well would work. Yeah, paintbrush for painting on the paint stripper is fine. You can invest in an airbrush if you want to. Again, there's so many available online. You can just do a couple of little review checks if you want to, just to check what brand might work for you. This one's absolutely fine. I've had it for about 4 years now and it's still going strong. I just have to take the actual brush part apart now and then and clean it as you do. The next thing you want is a whole stack of paintbrushes for detailing if you're going to be doing headlights and tail lights and hand painting and whatever. These ones are just small art ones that I have kind of trimmed down into a small point. Again, trying to get it to focus. So it ends up being a small point to be able to apply very fine lines and things like that, which sounds hard, but it's actually not too hard. Just practice makes perfect, I guess. Sandpaper, so you're going to want both a fine grit, but this one is slightly rougher than the other one. 120 for that one. That would be for getting rid of your any stubborn paint that's stuck on, and then you can smooth it out with this, which is sort of like a wet and dry grade. It's even good for sanding primer once you've primed it. I'll get into that again in a different video. Some other miscellaneous bits, hobby knife or X-Acto knife, whatever you want to call it. It's got a few different attachments here for cutting the plastic and trimming and scraping and whatnot. It comes in really handy. And we've got these I picked up from the local craft shop. Should be available in most craft shops. They're actually little glass tubes. I think they're sort of designed for making necklaces, but they actually work really well as exhaust pipes. So if you've got a car where it's got just the small plastic exhaust sticking out, you can file that off and glue on one of these and it looks exactly like a small stainless steel muffler. So they work great. We've got here some bedazzling gems, I guess. We've got some different size red ones for tail lights, and we've got the clear crystal style ones for the headlights. So these are really good for cars with round headlights or tail lights, and you just want to add a bit of sort of three-dimensional pop to them. It does look quite cool depending on what you're using it on. Here we have matchsticks. They can be used to build different things like roof racks or decks for utes, any type of framework for a vehicle that you're building on, or they're good for when you're gluing and you want to sort of move the glue into a small space or scraping off. Just good for poking around in general. Paper clips again. So these are quite versatile. So you can fold them out to a straight length of metal, then trim them off and use the length of metal for whatever framework that you're doing. They can be used for roof racks again. They can be used for roll cages as well. So if you're wanting to build inside the car as well, you can build a roll cage out of the straight lengths of the paper clips. They also work quite well for axles if you're wanting a flexible axle to put camber on it. Again, different video, I can probably do that at some point. I have here some resettable bags, which I think, yeah, definitely get some of those. They're available from your local craft shop as well, or stationery shop. So these are invaluable. I think you need to definitely get some of those to store your projects that you're halfway through, because you don't want them to be sitting there and gather dust and get other bits on them and contaminate them. They're also really good for putting in your plastic components of the vehicle you're working on. So if you're still painting your body, or you want to just keep the plastic safe, you put it in this bag and label the bag. That way I know exactly what casting it's come from. This one's come from the ute. I'm only doing one ute at the moment, so I know exactly where to dig when I need my plastic bits. They're also good for if you've got all your wheels off and things, you can put them in there. So if you've got a lot of parts from customs past, I'd recommend keeping some, and you can use them as basically testing paints or testing out designs, decals, wheels, whatever you want to test. This one was a test of paint to see if two different types of paints would mix well together. If you're airbrushing, it's good to test out the flow of the airbrush, because you don't want to start off on your prize project and find that the airbrush is actually not performing well. The other one is probably important, gloves. Again, available at most stores these days. They will go really well with this because you don't want this eating into your hands. Also recommend wearing gloves. Change your pair of gloves to a fresh pair when you're handling your painted model, because you don't want to put fingerprints on it, and you don't want to put contaminants on your fresh project, because it is noticeable. You'll see fingerprints all over some of them sometimes. Now, if you're wondering where to store all your spare parts and wheels, you can get from your hardware store a storage container that has the multiple compartments in it. Or I've found an old sewing box which has basically the same sort of thing. It's got multiple compartments. Obviously I've got a lot of plastic wheels from past customs. I also like to keep different components, such as, I've been given some engines. I like to keep spoilers, bits of interior, bits of headlight, even bits of this round twist tie are going to be really good for doing, hoses for the engine and things. So yeah, just if you've found interesting things in vehicles that you've opened, just keep them, because you might have some inspiration for a new project. And also a lot of wheels, different sizes to try on, and the rubber tyres, the real riders I've kept separately. They're a bit more special, I guess. Not sure if I've missed anything else out, but you're going to obviously want to have a decent workspace. This one looks cluttered at the moment because I've pulled everything out, but it's usually a lot tidier. If there's any questions, just put it through in the comments, ask away. If you're feeling generous, it's worth getting one of these things. It's a magnifying glass with a light as well, so you can obviously see what you're doing a bit better. Another thing to add, again, there's lots of things. Toilet rolls, these are worth keeping if you're interested in doing custom Hot Wheels, because they're really good to put your Hot Wheels on. So you can bend the top and stick your Hot Wheels on top, and it holds tight really well, and you can hold it upside down, you can turn it around, so if you're painting it, it's just really good. I'll just be cautious that it is sitting properly. Don't put your prize project upside down straight away, just test that it's going to hold. And they start to get misshapen after a while, so they may not stand up after a while, so it's worth just keeping fresh toilet rolls on hand. I'm sure you'll have no problems finding an endless supply of that upstairs. Right, that's me for now. I've talked for long enough. Let me know if there's anything else I've missed, any feedback. That's fine. Leave it in the comments. Thank you.